Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Before I start out this uh, time with you, I just want to mention with that intro there and countdown, it's been a long week. So I apologize for getting the spelling of Deacon wrong. I was just sitting here watching it and I was like, oh no, I spelled Deacon wrong. So I'm going to have to apologize to Deacon Ed, but I put a welcome out there on our page. At least welcome him there in the comments. Welcome Deacon Ed Shoener with us tonight. So I apologize for my spelling. I guess I need a spell checker or somebody to proof my slides after a long week, but please apologize for that. But we welcome you. I welcome you here tonight as we gather for a short time. It is Suicide Awareness Month for the month of September, and this is another time for us to gather together and seeing about how our spirituality can be also connected to our mental health. And we're going to have that brief discussion tonight. We'll talk a little bit about what Deacon Ed does, what organization he's part of. We'll talk a little about Pathways to Promise, and also talking about the Katie Foundation and what that is and how that is related to him. And I'll let him talk to you about that. So before we go much further, I welcome all of you. Please put your comments down if you have any questions you want to ask, if you want to mention anything, or if you just want to send likes out or send hearts out or whatever you like to know we're there. I would also like to know that you where you're from so I can keep in contact with you. If I can't answer any comments back or I don't see them pop up like always, I will make sure after the broadcast I will answer them, and I will try to get those answers right back to you as quick as possible. So without further ado, let me bring in Deacon Ed. There we go. How you doing, Deacon Ed?
Good evening, Brian. How you doing? Well, at least you didn't misspell Ed. It's one thing to misspell Deacon, but at least you didn't misspell Ed. So you're doing good.
Yeah, I was like, I feel bad because that's one of those things. Like they always say, you should double check, and I double check and triple check this afternoon. It must be didn't have the right frame of mind. I'm sitting here going, oh no, I had the right frame of mind now.
Good.
But no, welcome. We welcome you here tonight, taking this a little bit of time out of your evening, especially being a nice Thursday evening, taking time out with us. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're associated with as a deacon?
Yeah, I'm in the Roman Catholic Church. I'm what's called a permanent deacon. I'm ordained like a priest or a bishop, the same type of ordination. But I'm also married, have a family with kids and grandchildren. I'm assigned to St. Peter's Parish, which is the cathedral in Scranton. And I've been there since 2010 now, coming up on 10 years. I've been a deacon since 2004. But I also have a job and have to make a living. And so a deacon in the Catholic Church is primarily, for the most part, voluntary, although sometimes some deacons do take jobs within the church. So that's what I do in Scranton with the church.
Okay, very good, very good. And like I said, one of the things is this being Suicide Awareness Month, and I noticed one thing that you are part of the board of directors, if I'm correct, of a organization called Pathways to Promise that can help people, help congregations, help from any denomination to further understand and bring out awareness for, I believe, mental health, in their parishes or in their churches. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I'll put the website scrolling across if anybody wants to check that out too.
Sure, that's part of what a deacon does. Is the biggest part of our ministry is service and getting out into the community and serving people that are on the fringes, that are in the peripheries. And all too often, people who live with a mental health challenge or a serious mental illness feel excluded. They feel that there's a stigma against them, and there is. That's a reality of people that live with mental illnesses, that people are reluctant to want to talk about it. And so a big part of my ministry, and we can get into why this is, but a big part of my ministry is mental health ministry. So we have a mental health ministry here in Scranton, in our parish up here, where we have spiritual support groups for people that live with a mental illness and mental health challenges. And I'm also involved on a more national level with a thing called the National Catholic Partnership for Disability, which then sends a person to this interfaith, interreligious group called Pathways to Promise, which is what is scrolling at the bottom of the screen there. Pathways to Promise is made up of representatives from a variety of Christian organizations, non-Christian religions, the Catholic Church, of course, And we all try to work together to address the needs of people within our different faith traditions. And because even the churches, all the churches, struggle with this issue of mental health and mental illness and reducing the stigma. Sadly, the church, the Catholic Church among them, and many other churches have over the centuries been very slow to come around to see the importance of ministering to people with mental health challenges, and also seeing the value of bringing and recognizing these challenges, because people who live with a mental illness and mental health, as you well know, have much more empathy, much more sympathy. They understand suffering. They have a lot to teach us, those of us that may not have these serious mental illnesses that so many do. So Pathways to Promise is an organization that tries to bring this awareness into all the denominations, and it's a national organization.
Now, when you mentioned there, you said you also have spiritual groups, and besides this organization you do with, and there's like teaching or other things you bring into the church. Like, what kind of spiritual groups do you have that can help you with like people with mental illness, or to get you to possibly understand more? What kind of, say training or support groups do you have there in Scranton, just in case anybody wants to, because like you said, it's interfaith.
It's interfaith. Yes, we have two types of groups in Scranton. One is for people that live with mental health challenges and mental illnesses, and we meet on the Saturday mornings, the second and fourth Saturday at 10 a.m. And it's a place where people who live with these challenges can come together with other people of faith and talk about these challenges they live with and how it interacts with their faith. So we come together and pray about these illnesses and challenges. We openly talk about them. We try to understand and discuss where God is in the midst of all of this, because God is in the midst of these challenges, and God's in the midst of the suffering that they go through, and is also in the midst of the joys that they find. So we openly talk about where God is and Christ is in all of this. So that's one for the people that live with the illnesses. We also have a second group for the caregivers, and usually parents and spouses of people that live with these challenges. And particularly, when parents first find out about the diagnosis, there's very little information out there. It's getting better because of the internet, but there's still a limited amount of information out there for a parent when they find out their child's been diagnosed with schizophrenia or borderline personality disorder. All of these illnesses and their nebulous and ambiguous definitions and what they mean and how to support them. And again, they need to be reassured that God's in their life with them as this is going on. Because far too often they get ostracized and pushed to the side, and the stigma can be very debilitating, both for the people that live with the illnesses and the people that try to support them. So that's what those support groups up in Scranton do. There's also, and anyone from Wilkes-Barre or Kingston, in fact, we do have some people from down that direction that come to the support group meeting. We even have people as far away as Pike County and Sullivan County, New York, that come.
Oh, wow, okay.
In one sense, says there's a need for this. Why are people driving an hour and a half to Scranton? It's too bad. We need to expand this ministry. But I'm glad that we have it there and that they can take advantage of it.
And I looked out on the website for Pathways to Promise. They can help other organizations or churches to get a little bit of information, or there's resources out there for them to maybe start something. Like if like you just said, there's a lot of other people that drive in a long ways. There's at least resources if they wanted to go out there or to have partners. There's like a section for partners and allies, resources, things like that. Can you give kind of like what are the resources there for churches if they want to at least bring awareness, especially it's Suicide Awareness Month now. We have mental health awareness. I believe it's in May. Am I right?
Mental health awareness is May. Suicide awareness is this month.
Yeah. So those two things. That can you say about the resources if anybody wanted to grab if they couldn't make it to Scranton or anything like that?
Well, sure. They can go to the Pathway to Promise website, and there's a lot of material to download there. There's also Pathways to Promise to support parish communities and congregations in companionship training.
Oh, okay.
So read about companionship, because a lot of times people that are living with these challenges and illnesses feel isolated and alone. So big thing that the church can do and that the church is good at is providing companionship and accompanying people and just letting them know they're not alone. So we're not called as a church, Catholic, Methodist, whatever denomination, we're not called to be psychologists and psychiatrists.
Yep.
the medical profession, and they do as good as well as they can with that. What we're called to be is the healing presence of Christ in people's lives. And we can do that. That is something we're good at. We just have to get over the stigma ourselves. You can go talk. God is in the midst of schizophrenia. If you're having struggling with delusions and voices and things such as that, we have people in our group that live with schizophrenia and live well with it and can openly talk about these challenges. Similarly with mood disorders. So I think every Christian, of whatever denomination, in fact, of any faith at all, God can send them into the lives of people that live with these challenges and accompany them and let them know that they're loved by God and God values them and values their experiences, and what they're experiencing can be a gift to the broader church community, not something that they shun away and push them to the side, but embrace the gifts that they can give to us.
It's kind of like going along with the commandment that Christ gives us, love your neighbor as you would want to love yourself. And that also means to understand your neighbor and see what the love that they can show you back, no matter what path they are going down. And
absolutely.
And that's a big thing. And one thing I want to ask you before we move on to another topic with yourself is, during this time of this pandemic and COVID-19 and everybody being isolated, it's a whole different thing. You probably didn't have any group gatherings very much. They might be starting to.
Well, we did Zoom. Yeah.
Zoom. You did Zoom. Zoom is a different way. Have you seen different challenges come up? Have you seen more people wanting to try to connect to see that like you said, God is always present, trying to understand where God is in the midst now, because it's even more confusing. You're throwing something in that's very traumatic, depending on,
right,
that they're dealing with. What have you seen, or what kind of things have you suggested for people to try to cope through it besides the usual coping? Can you just give something simple like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, this has caused, if you live with an anxiety disorder, this has not helped. If you live with depression because of and then you're isolated, it doesn't help with your depression. So that's why we kept the group going no matter what. We kept the Zoom group going so people could at least connect, at least through Zoom. It's not ideal, but at least connect through that. And we are having the in-person meetings now. In fact, at our in-person meetings now, we have we'll have a laptop there at the table. So the people that are not comfortable can do that. So I would just say, the short tip right now would be, do something like this. Get involved with, don't sit there in your apartment or your home by yourself. Get on a Zoom meeting. Get on something where you can stay connected. It's important not to let yourself get isolated.
Yes,
and you don't get the virus, but thank goodness for these technologies that there are ways to stay connected and get involved. So if there was one thing I would say, that is do something at least once a week through some sort of digital. And sadly, there's a lot of people out there that, of course, don't have computers and don't have an internet connection, and it's harder for them. And that's where faith communities can come into play and at least pick up the phone and call someone, even if you're not comfortable seeing them. And I know a lot of faith communities did that. They did make wellness calls to make sure their parishioners and the congregants are doing okay. So it's just a matter through this, just staying connected.
It's kind of getting back to the old days before. I think in our lives we're too busy. We were not staying connected. But I remember back to when I was a kid, my grandma, everybody seems to be writing letters, calling each other, because you weren't able to you couldn't see each other very easily.
Right.
You had a dial-in phone that cost you an arm and a leg to just call up the street, not even 50 yards, so.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Pre-COVID, that was a problem. We were isolating because we were too busy. We were way too busy. Our lives were too hectic.
And I do encourage anyone, if you are interested in that, and just send me a message or put it out here on the comments, and I'll forward that to Deacon Ed, and I'll have him reach out to you with that Zoom, like you said, or the meetings from that, and more specific on the times, if that's okay with you. Ed, is that okay? And then that way, if there's anybody that wants to do that, and this is a great opportunity by them offering Zoom. Sometimes with anxiety, you can't. Like with my late wife, Jen, she wouldn't drive. She couldn't go out. She didn't want to drive. And this is a way for you to be part of a group in a different way. And it's nice that where was the blessing in the midst of this with this pandemic? You were kind of forced to do it a different way. And now you can bring in other people that you might not have ever reached. So it's a good thing too.
Right. We even have a person call in from Zoom from Virginia.
There you go.
So, Virginia, Kingston, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. So.
Exactly. And so anybody's interested, please, like I said, send a comment or send me a message and I'll get that over to you. But now I want to shift gears a little bit because of being the month we're in. And I know there's another topic that is dear to your heart, and that is the Katie Foundation. Can you talk a little bit about the Katie Foundation, Ed?
Well, sure. That's the story. Where I guess the root of this story is that God can turn everything to the good, even something as evil as suicide. God can turn to the good. Our daughter, my wife Ruth and I's daughter Katie, lived with bipolar disorder for 11 years. It came on in her late teens, and sadly, when she was 29. And we can show a little video here if the technology works for us, because nobody wants to see a 60-year-old guy tear up. She died from suicide in August of 2016. And although it's been 4 years, as anyone who's lost a child, whether by suicide or any other way, knows that it's a tough thing to live with. But we do learn to live with it, and by the grace of God. And when after Katie died, we wrote a simple obituary that simply said she had a mental illness and died by suicide. And that thing went viral. We just were doing this as a simple explanation to our community here. And so it apparently spoke to the needs and problems that other people who live with mental illnesses and have lost someone to suicide spoke to. So that was a blessing, not as something that was terrible, absolutely horrible. And so we have a little video here that talks about Katie, that the Geisinger healthcare system put together, and about what Geisinger's doing to reduce the stigma in the community as a whole. And it's also would be, I think, a good way to talk about reducing stigma within our church communities also. So.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll play that video, then we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about what the Katie Foundation is doing in the air and how people can interact with that. So let me, like I said, technology, I'm going to hide you and I'll bring you back and I'll bring up the video and we'll watch that. Okay, Ed?
Okay, great.
Katie growing up was a beautiful, wonderful, vibrant little girl almost from the get-go. She was born on Halloween, so Halloween in our house here was always a big day. She was just a wonderful, sweet girl, the best kid you could hope to want to raise. Scranton High School is where she went. She was the salutatorian at Scranton High School. She was the freshman sensation on her soccer team, president of her National Honor Society. She was dating boys. And it was a wonderful time in her life, at least to all outward appearances. Katie first experience with the mental illness probably started before we as parents knew. This mental illness was causing all sorts of anxieties for her, and she was cutting on her arm, and she would cover it with her bracelets. This is when she was a senior in high school. We didn't know what to make of it because we had no experience in mental illness. The response when she came back to high school was just this silence. I don't think anybody was deliberately being mean or setting us aside. It's just that our friends and family and other people at the school don't know what to say. It took us a long time to begin to understand what this mental illness is, what bipolar disorder is. We had never heard of it. She always took her medicine. She always took it seriously. It's a lot of hit or miss with these medicines, but she stuck in there for a long time. But finally, at the end, the last year, nothing was working. They were just throwing the medicine cabinet at her. She just became so terribly, terribly, painfully depressed, and she tried to pull herself out of it. The depression just overwhelmed her. She died from suicide in August 3rd, 2016. So I thought it would be good just to simply say this is what happened. She had a mental illness and she died from suicide, but to recognize it as an illness, not as a character flaw or a moral failing or anything like that. It apparently spoke to what a lot of people with mental illness experience, and this obituary went viral.
This is a unique medical school because no other medical school has made behavioral health, in collaboration with its community, its #1 priority.
The Behavioral Health Initiative is a wonderful initiative that we at the Katie Foundation have been supporting because it brings the treatment of mental illness into the community.
If you think about many of these issues and problems as being brain disorders, biologically based, strong genetic factors, then that's going to help remove the stigma that's been associated with having behavioral health problems, psychiatric problems.
There's so many misconceptions about people that have a mental illness. Mental illness is an illness like all the other illnesses that doctors treat, and it needs to be understood that way.
The goals of the curriculum would be provide the tools and the awareness and the expertise to help integrate behavioral health into the physical healthcare world so that it is seamless and it is just a matter of fact that those two problems will be addressed together.
And that's what I like about the BHI. It'll be integrating the care of people with a mental illness into the broader community in many, many different ways, and that's a great thing.
What an amazing video, Ed, talking about Katie and her life and what Geisinger is doing for Katie. Actually, it's Katie's leading that, and Geisinger's partnering with the Katie Foundation to really spread so that stigma is not there. So how has Geisinger been helping you? How does that relationship been? Like, what have they done so far since that video?
Yeah, what Geisinger does is they have the Behavioral Health Initiative, which they mentioned in the video, which involves bringing mental health care into the community in a more open way. The other important thing they're doing is that they're educating the doctors at their medical school right off the bat. It used to be, psychiatrists were over here and all the other doctors were over there, and the two of them didn't mix too much. But now the general practitioners, whatever medical field they're going into, they get mental health training, mental health care right up from the get-go, which is so important. I would say for any of us, and in fact, I tried at my general practitioner at one point, when you go in for an annual checkup, they do your blood pressure, your heart. They should also ask you how your mental health is, how you're feeling. Are you suicidal? Don't be afraid to ask someone that. Is there depression, anxiety? That should be part of the routine checkup. And Geisinger's training their docs now as freshmen to be aware of that, to ask those sort of questions. Not, if they go into psychiatry, they can then treat people, but at least ask those questions, and depending on the answers, be ready to make a referral. So that's a wonderful thing, just bringing it into the mainstream of medical care. That's one of the things I learned with Katie and accompanying Katie as she lived with this. Mental health care and psychiatric care has a long ways to go. It's not like you can take a couple pills and magically the mental illness goes away. For some people, they do very well, but for a lot of people, it's a struggle. These illnesses are still very much hit or miss. So if you're diagnosed with these illnesses, it's not like they take a blood sample and draw a sample and say your dopamine and your serotonin off so much that you give you 5 milligrams of whatever. It's more like they give you 5 milligrams of whatever and then come back a month from now and tell me how you feel. Are you still suicidal? Are you still depressed? And then depending on the answer, they'll tweak it a little bit, give you a little bit different medicine. So it's got a long ways to go, but it's a lot better than nothing. That's for sure. And that's what I always say to people. Even though Katie died by suicide, I'm convinced, just like chemotherapy for cancer, not everybody getting chemotherapy survives the cancer, but the chemotherapy kept them alive longer than they would have been otherwise. And with Katie, I'm sure the medicine kept her alive longer than she would have been otherwise. She would have been dead from suicide much earlier because she had the mood disorder Katie had was really tough disorder. So anybody that's listening or knows somebody with a mental illness and under psychiatric care, do not stop taking the meds, even if they're not doing great with them. They're believe me, they're better than nothing. And we have one of the things we could do as a community is advocate for better research and better ways to treat mental illnesses as time goes by. But that's one thing I learned is that the medical care is better than nothing, but it needs to get a whole lot better.
Exactly. And I know in the community it's a little bit harder this year to, like I said, to get that word out in the ways you used to. You used to have a run, a Katie Foundation run.
Oh,
Every year.
Yeah, we're going to do a virtual run this year.
We're going to do a virtual run. So
We
can
just
people
gotta
go to
get
the
that
web? What's that?
We just got that organized last week.
Oh, good. So they can go to the website there and find ways to support the Katie Foundation, also with that virtual run and the other things that, what's on that website that they could go, to definitely support you too if people are interested.
Well, the Katie Foundation's main goal locally is to increase awareness and reduce the stigma in Northeast Pennsylvania, Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. So we have the virtual run, which is a way to do that. I mean, the fundraising is nice, but that's not the main goal of it. The main goal of the virtual run is to raise awareness. We'll give you a shirt. You get a T-shirt. I think it's $30. You get a T-shirt with the Katie Foundation, and the slogan of the Katie Foundation is "Shining a Light on Mental Illness." That's the tagline for the foundation. And what funds are raised goes to the Behavioral Health Initiative at Geisinger, and also to NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which is a secular grassroots group that across the country, and there's a local chapter in Luzerne and Lackawanna County too that we support, and they do a lot of things with greater public awareness, training police officers. We read about this so much in the news these days. Police officers quite often have to respond to mental health and mental illness incidents in the community, and a large part of what the NAMI does is try to help in the training and awareness of the police officers, so when they respond to people that are having a mental health crisis, they're in a better position to do it sensitively. So all of those things, we're just on all fronts in the church and in the community and in our police departments, and advocating for better mental health research and better care. All of these things we have to sort of push forward on all of those fronts, so that the people that deal with this, and I keep talking about the people. I mean, it's us. I mean,
yes.
I struggle with moderate amounts of depression. 50% of us during the course of our lifetime are going to have to deal with some sort of mental health condition or mental illness. And at any one time, 20% of us are dealing with it at this moment. And about 6-7% of the population has a serious mental illness.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say while I'm reeling off some statistics here, if today is an average day in the United States, about 130 people are going to die from suicide today. So please keep them in our prayers. About, I'm sure this year, 2020, with the COVID, it's going to be approaching 50,000 people are going to die this year in the United States from suicide. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the country. And for young people, 35 and younger, it's the second leading cause of death. So it's a serious problem that's been swept under the rug all too often. We're reluctant to talk about suicide because it is a terrible thing. There's no doubt about it. But I'm old enough to remember when people didn't like talking about cancer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure some of your listeners will remember that, particularly back in the 60s. You didn't even talk about cancer. But fortunately, we do now, and there's better treatment and greater advocacy for cancer treatments. We need to get to the same place with suicide. We need to declare war on suicide. We need to say, we don't want to see suicide anymore. We need to understand it and why it is. And like I talked, it's an illness. Far too often, for far too many years, people thought these mental illnesses were a character flaw or a moral failing. Maybe they're not praying enough, that if they prayed more, the mental illness would go away. And that's just not the case. I mean, there could be miracles, and cancer can disappear, and mental illness can disappear. But what God gives us to deal with these illnesses is medical care. And so we need to pray for better medical care. And our prayers can help people in their struggles, like prayers do for people in all of our struggles. And prayers can let us know that the love of Christ is present. And the best way we can make known or help Christ help people with mental illness is advocate for better mental health care. That's what God wants. Sure.
And that's right. I think as we go forwards, I think one of the ways the church is even in ourselves is to be also that voice in our community, because the church does deal with a lot of people in hard times. They feel comfortable sometimes to go to the church and talk, and we can be the lead in that. And I'm glad to hear that you're telling us about Pathways to Promise, which is an interfaith organization that encourages that. And the Methodist Church, we do have a part of our social principles. We do have a committee that oversees that and makes awareness to that throughout the year, and also has resources through our denomination's website, the United Methodist Church. I think there is a little bit.
sorry to interrupt you, Brian, but I read the Methodist
Yeah.
statement on that. It's excellent. It's wonderful.
Yes. And there's a lot. It's just getting people just to, like you said, putting it out there. It might make it uncomfortable, but we're all there together. We are put into those uncomfortable situations. And I appreciate you saying that about the Methodist statement, because it is a good statement on how we should be to each other. Because one of the principles, the three rules of our principles of to do good, do no harm, and stay in the ordinances of God. And if we do good, we allow no harm possibly to be done, or we cause the harm in many different ways. And we do that by staying in the ordinances of prayer, worship, and doing what God expects us to do. So I think it's a great way to do that. So tonight, I appreciate you coming, talking about the Katie Foundation, which is going across the screen there at the bottom. Also, Pathways to Promise. Also, like I said, if anyone out there would be interested in those groups that Deacon Ed was talking about, please send me a message or put a comment down, and I'll get you in contact with the right area, especially for the people that might be watching this broadcast at a later date. I'll also be sharing this broadcast eventually out on our YouTube channel, so you'll see when that is posted out there. But let us all, I think tonight, at whatever we're going through changes in our life. We're all still anxious with going back to school, parents, seeing stuff still in the news, all those things. Take time away. Be with your family. Take that time with our Lord. Just find that time to just try to settle down, but also know technology has allowed us to come together even in a better way that we never thought possible, because we're kind of forced into it. But I just want to tell you, thank you, Ed, for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking time out and speaking on that. And is there anything you want to wrap up with or anything before we say goodnight?
Just thank you very much for you. You've been a longtime advocate, and you've been involved with the Katie Foundation. And I know because of Jennifer's struggles also, and you've been quite open about that, living with mental illness. And you found it to be a gift in Jennifer's, a struggle, but also, a gift too. And so it's every place. It's in all of our families. We deal with it ourselves, and it's just good and refreshing to see a faith leader such as you being open and willing to discuss it. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you, Ed, and prayers are with you and your family, especially during this time of this month, because it's a hard month, and just prayers with your whole family and your wife and yourself.
Thank you, Brian. Well,
everyone have a very good night. Everyone, God bless, and always remember, if you need to reach out, I'm here. Post on our Facebook site. I simulcast this on both my Facebook page and the Dorrance United Methodist Church's Facebook page. If you need other resources, you can also reach out to Dorrance United Methodist Church, ask for myself, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you, or at least point you in the right direction to the right people that can take care of you. So everyone have a good night, and God bless.